If you feel like your young person is just checking boxes instead of actually loving what they're learning, this one's for you. I'm joined by my friend and fellow educator, Kami Wanous. She is a Freedom Scholar, and we're going to dig in how to create a culture of lifelong learning with your kids, whether they're in public school, private school, or homeschool, and that's a community that she supports specifically. We're talking about what kills curiosity, how to rebuild it once it's dead, and why it matters so much for not only education, but for the career that your child will build after they leave high school. So let's go ahead and dive right in to a great conversation, because you're going to have some mindset shifts that are going to really support not only you and your parenting, but the potential long-term outcome for your child. Kami, welcome.
Thanks for having me. I'm super excited.
I am too. Okay, we should tell everybody a little bit of our backstory because it relates exactly to what we're talking about. So we only just met this year, and I feel like I've known you forever because I think we're so aligned in so many things. But it was born out of when I made a comment to you in a different session that we were in. And I said, oh, it's like people forget that career advising or career coaching takes place in, and I'm using my little fingers, people on YouTube can see me, but our listeners can't. It's like a little place in time on our timeline of life. Like, boop, we're doing some career advising or career coaching. And like, that's what I do in my Launch Career Clarity course. However, the attitude that everybody, young adult, teen, adult, needs to have is career development is lifelong. Like, you can never stop. I mean, I wouldn't have a podcast if at 20 something I was like, well, yep, I got my training. I went to college. I got my degree. And this is what I'm going to do, because the world's evolving. And you said, oh my gosh, I found my people. And so as a homeschool mom yourself, as a supporter and cheerleader for those that are in the trenches doing something that I was not brave enough to do, tell me how it relates to the work that you're doing.
Yeah, this is great because I remember this conversation so vividly, and we were so connected on so many places. And we are definitely connected on lifelong development. And so really taking, and that begin with the end in mind idea.
Yes.
And so that idea that we're taking this vision, and then we're actually being intentional about what we do so that we come out with the vision that we have identified with our kids and with our spouse, and just really taking the clarity that we have in defining it first of all. And I know that you do that so amazing with your students and your parents, and then bringing it backwards and making sure that we're getting there in our journey.
I love it. So this idea that you are fostering of lifelong learners, it goes beyond just like we're educating. And yeah, I mean, you're a homeschool mom. That's your community, right? But this topic applies for everybody, right?
So much, yes. It
So
doesn't even matter.
yes. So like wherever you're getting your education, even if you're just like out in the field getting your education, right? You're getting some employer-based training or like things like that that we teach. So this idea, this concept that we have to raise lifelong learners. What do you mean? What do you mean by that? Like, because I'm sure some people hear that and they're like, what?
I think a lot of people hear it and they kind of tune out a little bit because we hear it so
Oh,
often it becomes just we don't even think about what it means and what that exemplifies. So I think this is a really great question. And I was actually talking about this with my students I was teaching a homeschool class, and we're talking about mission, purpose. We're talking about making intention with their life and their whole life. And we're talking about being a lifelong learner. And I said, one of the things, because I was actually a classroom teacher for 7 years, I taught high school English, and my husband still teaches too. So we're a very educational family. But one of the things that I really tried to do when I was teaching was to just reignite the spark of that love of learning. And it was so hard because they had been in this box checking sort of mentality for so long. And a lot of them had lost that love of learning. But a lifelong learner, if I could just spark that spark
Yeah.
in their life for something, for me, it was reading. I wanted them to be able to read something that they found interesting. I literally didn't care what it was. Because if they did, maybe someday they'll read something that
Ooh.
matters, that changes their life or somebody
Ah,
else's life. And that confidence, that's love of learning, that, oh, I'm hungry. I want to learn a little more. I want to learn a little more. And then that confidence that if I need to learn something, I can learn it. My son said that one time to my husband. It was hilarious. He said, my husband was saying, oh, well, eventually you'll need to learn such and such. I don't even remember what it was. And my son wasn't trying to be trite. He was just saying, well, if I need to learn it, then I'll just learn it. And I was laughing out loud. I was like, yes, that is the theme song of a lifelong learner right there.
yeah, I'll
It's
figure
so
it out.
beautiful. Yeah, just figure it out. So it's really something that you are just consistently hungry for. And then when you need to learn something, it's no big deal.
It's interesting. Like in the on the Berkman, we give the Berkman personality assessment to everybody that does our launch course. And we measure intellectual curiosity. So there are people that are born naturally curious, and others it's going to be have to be fostered and developed. As you were just telling that story, like if I can reignite that spark for reading, there's this ripple effect, right? And so I have a question. What grade were you teaching? So you were teaching English. What grade were you teaching?
I taught everything, but most of the time I taught sophomores.
Okay. So I taught for 8 years, and I taught every grade between 7 and 12 at one point.
Yeah,
And the older the better for me, honestly, okay, no
me too.
surprise. I
Although I do love sophomores.
do you? Okay. Yeah, I junior high was like not my jam. But did you feel like by 10th grade, most kids had like lost that spark for learning?
So much, so much. They're just going through the motions. And that's the message that we send to students when they're in school. I've said it myself, is we send them the message that this is just a game. Just play the game. Just play the game, get your
Yeah,
paper, go up. Like just play the game. And they don't see the relevance in a lot of things that they're doing because a lot of the
right.
curriculum doesn't make it relevant.
Well,
And yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, like, as you're talking about like playing the game, it makes me think, and I get this question all the time. Now, we support kids on all educational paths, but
Yeah.
the ones that are college bound that are teens and they're college bound really have this attitude of like, what's that going to get me? Is that going to
Mm-hmm.
get me
Yeah.
on the campus? So it becomes more about getting in instead of this, who do I want to be? And what impact do I want to make in the world?
Yeah,
Right.
they're great at playing the game. I
Yeah.
was a great box checker. I was like, tell me what to do, and I will do it. I'm not going to put stickers on my poster boards. I'm not going to be all glittery, but I will get her done. And that will get me what I want. Exactly that mentality. And so that is the mentality of a lot of the kids that are very, very college bound and know they're going or even know where they want to go. They're
Yeah.
like, give me the checklist.
Well, I'm working with a 23-year-old right now
Nice.
who just graduated from an Ivy that shall remain nameless. And I said to him when we started, what did you think you were going to be when you when you were in high school and you're like going to college? Like what were you going to major in? What did you think you would do with it? He goes, I didn't. I just wanted to get into the most prestigious school possible. And he said, so I took all the APs and tried to get fives on all my exams and tried to get a good ACT score and tried to have the right resume. I said, okay, so you land on that Ivy campus and you found people that you loved and it was great. And I said, but what did you think then? He's like, I just wanted an Ivy degree. Like I didn't think about it. His friends have all moved on to like, and he did study abroad, but didn't really get high value internships, which is a barrier to getting a job right now.
Right.
Hiring is down for new graduates. And his friends, most of them have moved on to jobs, and he's back at home living at his parents' house. And honestly, he's struggling a little bit, even like emotionally, because he's like got imposter syndrome because everybody's moved on. But he didn't spark anything. He was box checking. So I've heard you say like it lowers the love of learning. So how do we get kids to change their mindset? And maybe it's the parents too. I mean, is it more the kids or the parents? Like, where does it start? Who needs to go first on like how we solve this lower love of learning and correct to build lifelong learners? I guess that's my next question.
Yeah, that's a great question because what I teach is I teach to create a culture. I teach parents how to make a culture. And really, that's the key. So, if we don't change the messages that we're sending to students, the message that we send to students on a traditional education is do the things that you need to do to check your boxes, and then you'll get to the college and then check your boxes there, and then you'll get a good job somewhere. But that's not necessarily how life works right now, like you just said.
It's really not working that way anymore.
Yeah, so we have to change the messages that we're sending. And the message of lifelong learning is that learning happens everywhere all the time. So what happens with when we have traditional education is all these things that we're supposed to learn, these subjects, these skills, and they're important according to society and adults. And for most kids, they're pretty boring. Maybe I'm not very good at it. Whatever, I'm just going to do it. And for this is the stuff they like to learn on the other side of the spectrum. And it's so a lot of times it's not important to adults in society,
Yeah.
and it's not going to be the college thing necessarily. And but it's great and I love it and I'm passionate and I'm interested. And so in order to become a lifelong learner, we have to bridge that gap. We have to
Mm.
take those two things, say, guess what? This stuff is cool too. The other side, the traditional, that's amazing. But we have to bridge the gap between the two. And it starts with how we send the messages about what we're doing and why we're doing it.
Okay, I love this. It makes me think of I use this comment all the time because kids will say like, "Well, I can't do that job someday. Like, I don't know how to do that." I'm like, "Why do you think we go to school or get trained? Like, we're just trying to find the thing to do, then we're going to go get the training, right?" And what
Right.
I've seen over time is passion increases as proficiency increases.
Yes, absolutely.
And so that's kind of what came to mind as you're talking about like bridging the gap because they have these things over here that they're really passionate about, and there are things over here that they're being told they need to be proficient in. So how do we bridge that gap? And instead of just going, oh, know that as we gain proficiency on either side of that coin, passion and excitement can increase. It doesn't mean that you're going to love everything, but don't
Yeah.
don't throw the baby out with the bathwater on this one.
Yeah, and even if you're in traditional education, you can't you can't homeschool or do anything else. It's you can still work with your teachers and you can still say, okay, this is what we're trying to achieve. How can we best do that? How can we incorporate this passion into this assignment or whatever the case? And some teachers you're not going to have luck with, but
Right.
sometimes you are, and they'll be willing to work with you in that arena because something I used to teach when I was in the classroom is I found project-based learning and I was like, money. This is money. This
This
is
is it.
exactly
Yeah.
what combines the passion with their interest, with the academic, with everything. And guess what? It's how our brains work anyway.
Yes.
Our brains work on a goal-oriented system. So
Why I
we
want you to stop for a second and explain to like if we've got a parent listening whose kid is traditionally schooled, mine were, and they go project-based learning. What are you talking about?
Great question. Project-based learning actually takes let's say your kids are really into skateboarding. So maybe your town doesn't have a skate park and they want to build a skate park. Now, I know very little about skateboarding, so this possibly is a bad metaphor, but
Yeah, don't send
the
us hate mail over this metaphor.
no, exactly. But if they so we want to build a skate park. Well, what do we have to do to build a skate park? We need to know about civics. We need to know about how our city ordinances work, how city planning. We need to know how to get something approved. We need to know construction materials, construction processes. We need to know how to then we need to know the physics of the moves, the tricks
Yes.
that they do, and then how that relates to the construction process that needs to happen. And the do you see, and the
Yeah.
history of all of that, that is project-based learning.
So when
And
your
what you
kid
can,
gets an assignment in a traditional class,
yeah.
go, how do I turn my loves into this project, but it's not always going to work.
No, it's not always going to work. It might work more in the humanities sector, in the
Hmm.
English history kind of stuff. But if not, if you can't figure it out, do it on your own. First of all, it looks really great for colleges and careers if you
Yeah,
did some and it doesn't have to be that big. It doesn't have to be a build a skate park kind of thing. But what about like putting an informational sign up? Think Eagle Project,
right.
scouting Eagle Project, like putting an informational sign up at a park for, for all the wildlife that's there or something like that. That's a project where you're outside of your house, you're outside of a school, you're
Right.
community oriented, and now we're bringing in all these things. Your kids will learn way more because they're passionate about it, and they will also be tying in some of the things that they learned in the traditional education as well.
So hopefully everybody's hearing like it doesn't matter if you're homeschooled,
No.
traditionally schooled. And I agree with you. Like we cultivate a culture of real world experiences with the people in our launch course. Like that's what we preach, right? So we build the self-awareness about ourselves, then we connect it to career awareness, but then we got to go
Hmm.
test. We got to validate in the real world. And these projects that you're talking about, they're perfect for this, right? I absolutely love what you're preaching because it helps us validate the careers that should be the goal of the end in mind piece where we reverse engineer it.
Yeah, you get to test it out, right? Do I even
Yeah,
like doing this? Is this something that's interesting to me? Oh, wait, people that do work with parks, they don't actually make a lot of money. Does that something that I'm willing to do? I don't know.
right.
Let's
Well,
try
we
it.
get into values as we're building the self-awareness. So like if somebody's listening and they're like this does sound important. Like why is it important? Because some people might be going, okay, I hear this lifelong learning is good. It will help with extracurriculars. It might help with school. But like why should people take this seriously?
Oh my gosh, this is the best question. I love this because this is exactly what I was talking about with my teen homeschool students earlier last week. And I said, okay, if you don't do your passion and do what's yours to do in the world, how does that affect people? And whatever your passion is, and that's the point, is lifelong learners are leaders. They develop into leaders, right?
Mm,
Normally. So I should say it backwards, actually. So leaders, true leaders, are lifelong learners. And so we have to think about if we're going to set our kids up for success in anything they want to do, which is always what I get from parents when I ask them what their vision is for their kids when they're
yep.
25 or whatever the case, right? So that is something I want them to just be prepared for whatever they want to do in the future. Okay. Well, the best way you can do that is to have them become lifelong learners. Because then
Mm.
if they choose leadership, they're on their way. If they choose that passion in the world, this is what our world needs. Our world needs people to go out and live what's theirs to do, to help people, to help society, to
You
help
are preaching to the
something.
choir over here, as you know.
And if we don't have that, what happens? Not only are we cheating our kids out of a beautiful, wonderful,
Hmm.
fulfilled life, fulfillment, but we're also cheating the world from their gifts and their talents and their passions.
Yeah. It's the ripple effect, right? I
Yeah.
think Gen Z, they are poised to correct some of the cluster that we are all living
Yes.
in right now. I don't care what your political beliefs are. I don't care where you land on all the things. Like Gen Z, like you're the solution, right? But you have to understand yourself and the greater purpose that you have in this world. And so that's what gets me really excited about getting kids aligned with the being the solution to what could be greater for us. But when I talk to parents over and over and over, what do they tell me? I just want my kid to be happy. I don't want them living. I mean, this kid I just used as the example who's back at home, like that's nobody's dream. It's nobody's dream that after graduation, given a little bit of appropriate time, that their kid's still in their house, the parents carrying the burden and the weight of like, how do I help them launch? And you're even financially still carrying that weight. parents just want happy kids. And so there is happiness and joy that comes out of this what you're talking about here. So I have a question. If a parent's listening and they're like, what would be an indicator, a symptom of the fact that my kid is not engaged, not, I mean, you might be going like, maybe my kid's a lifelong learner. I don't know. Like you've told us why it's important to reignite it. You told us like, box checking doesn't work. If a parent's on the fence and they're like, I don't know if my kid isn't or is, what's the symptom?
Well, there are a lot of symptoms, but I want to definitely address the happy thing because this is something I
Oh,
hear a lot
yeah.
too.
Okay.
I hear it all the time. And I say, well, okay, well, I can be very happy like eating chocolate watching a rom-com.
Mm.
Like I can be very happy
I
for a short
have
period of time.
chocolate sitting on my desk right now.
That's the chocolate that I eat. No way.
I will.
I
Is
love
it
it.
really? Oh, commercial sponsorship. No,
Commercial.
it's the best.
It's the
I
best. But
I feel
we're
you.
talking about what they really mean, I hope, is fulfillment. They want happy
It
kids
is.
on the inside. And so, and sustaining for the long term. So when you think about that, and you think about your kids when they're all out of college and whatever that time may be,
Yep.
what what kind of person are they? What do they know about the world? What kind of skills do they have? These are the three questions I ask parents all the time. That would tell you the details of what a happy kid is. Also, as far as love of learning goes, so when you have a lot of complaining, frustration, when there's rolling of the eyes at any, I mean, we have teenagers, so it's
Yeah.
going to
I
happen at
mean,
some
this.
point.
Yeah. You
But
will get some
yeah,
rolling.
when
This
it
is not
relates
the
to,
antidote
yeah,
to
I
that.
know.
Don't
When
send
it
me hate
relates to
mail.
learning is what I'm
Yes.
talking about. You know you have low love of learning. If you're frustrated, they're frustrated. You get, every time you talk, you say the word school. I actually don't
Yeah.
use the word school because I don't like it. But if you have kids that are curious, like, oh, you know what I just learned about? Check out this article I just read, Mom. What? Oh,
So
you know
those
what?
are
That
the
reminds
signs
me
that
of.
like it's shifting.
Hey, can we go out? And I really was thinking about building a ramp in the backyard. Like, can we do that? Like, I really, those kinds of things, or gosh, that kind, if we're talking about teens, which we are, teens and higher, we're really looking at the 2 hour when you have a lifelong learner. I have like 2 hour conversations with my son on the regular about, we start off with like a current event or something that happened
Yeah.
in our lives. And then we go to human nature, we go to history, we go to economics, we go to all the things that we're learning about psychology, all of these things. And it all comes together. Oh, that reminds me of this book. Let me go grab it. Oh, and my son's really good. I'm not good at that, but he could grab the book that it
And
came
know what
from and
page.
know what page it's on and be, oh,
Yeah.
it's right here. It's right. See what they say. And just that kind of curiosity, that kind of interest. I mean, it might not be as passionate as that all the time, but honestly, it's crazy when they learn that they're they're reading a history book on their own. They're
Yeah.
reading a math book, not a
Well,
math
they'll start
textbook.
to like, I've seen college admission essays that ask, what's a topic that you can get lost in? And that's really
Mm,
like, that
that's
aligns
man,
with
that's
what
me.
you're talking about right now. Really, like, what is the thing that you go down the rabbit hole and you come up for air 2 hours later and you're like, what? And I'm not talking about scrolling on TikTok or Instagram Reels.
Good distinction. Yeah.
But could your kid write an essay about something like that that they just get lost in? And I also, from a career advising standpoint, say like that doesn't have to be the thing that you do for a living, right?
Yes.
Because I think sometimes when we say find your passion, follow your passion, it's a bold-faced lie. It is not, it does not serve anybody because it is pressure filled that there's just one passion. Passions shift and change over time,
Well,
right?
Chris Brady says in the book Pales,
Yeah.
Pales, Pales. That's a book I'm teaching to my homeschool kids right now, and he talks about these stages like a pyramid.
Hmm.
There's stages and preparatory experiences, which is what they're in right now.
Yeah.
Don't always have to do specifically with what their main purpose is
Yep.
at the top, but it's teaching them things that they're going to use for that.
Well, I call those through lines. I always say
Yeah.
if I take somebody, if I take like my 27-year-old and we could go back and we could discover the through
Yes.
line. I mean, I, as his mom, know them, but if he were a stranger, we could have a conversation and in 10, 15 minutes, I would be able to discover the through lines because
Yep.
this is what I do, right?
Mm-hmm.
I love it. I love it. Like there's so much at risk if we don't get this right.
There
So,
is. Yeah.
as you're talking about this, my husband's going to kill me for this part of the podcast. So, nobody tell him that I just shared this story. Okay. So, you're talking about like you're culturally creating something that is fostering curiosity, right? So, this whole idea of intellectual curiosity, colleges are going to ask about it on their apps as well. So, my husband, we had some suspected sleep apnea going on. So, my poor family hates me. I'm pretty sure underneath the surface when they act like they like me. And we did a sleep study and then we got the results and we met with someone and he's struggling to get the CPAP working, but he's making progress. But I got really curious in our launch live Q&A that we do monthly. I told this story about how to get curious about careers. And I went through all of the different career buckets related to sleep disorders. From the technicians, there are sleep disorder certifications that the technicians that run the overnight sleep studies do, right?
Yeah.
There's the people who, and I forget, I made a list of all the things one time. And if somebody wants the list, email me and I'll give you the list of all the jobs. But then, like, who's looking at the data? Then the nurse practitioner who's trained in sleep disorders is meeting with us. And then there's a whole nother industry for the biomedical engineers who develop the machines, right? And then you've got the people who are selling and fitting the devices. I
Yep.
mean, it's amazing. You can take any topic. I did this when we were on a recent cruise with my family. We went from Boston to Quebec City, and I was thinking about like all the different jobs on the ship. And they had like the captain of the ship. They did a Q&A with him and I think the chief engineer, but like their career path, how did they get there and what is their life like? So it's creating this culture of conversation.
Yes. And that's learning everywhere or learning happens everywhere all the time.
There
No
you
matter
go.
wherever you go, you're looking, you're just curious about what that's happening. I mean, that's whenever we're leaving our house, there's always learning that's happening. Look at what's happening over there with the grapevines. I live in the Napa Valley area, and so look at that. Look what's happening
Yep.
and now they're doing this and we're learning about it just from driving down the road. We go to and
Yeah.
any vacation, we're learning about stuff. And so that contributes to the curiosity of what's happening. And it doesn't always, it's not like a quiz. Oh gosh, please
So
don't make it a quiz. So,
yeah,
oh,
you'll get the
what,
love of learning if you make it a quiz.
how many professions do you think are on this cruise ship?
Right.
Like,
They see right through that,
yeah,
right?
that
It's
doesn't
not
work. They're
happening.
like, I roll. I mean, it's not
Well,
going to
it's
happen.
the idea of natural conversations. Like in our newsletter every week, we give a conversation cue for a family to use to just go deeper on a topic, right?
Mm-hmm.
It is I was Rick Clark, he used to be director of admissions at Georgia Tech, and now he's in a different enrollment job that they created for him last year. I forget the name of it, but he and Brendan Bernard wrote a great book to help guide your family's college search, right? And I had Rick on the podcast back in April, and I said, the thing that we're really aligned on is this is all accomplished through conversation with the family. And I
Yep.
really think, Cami, like that's what you're advocating for. And you get more influence and control over it if you're a homeschooler, but it's not lost with that opportunity if you're in traditional school.
Yeah, and it definitely starts with that, usually from parental sharing. So, like, hey, guess what I learned today? You know what I think is fascinating about this is, this book or whatever the case, and then
Yeah.
you get them teased and because they have opinions.
Oh, they
and I would
do?
like to share
Uh,
them all the time.
I hate to tell you all, they have really strong opinions still when they're adults. So, well, Cami, this has been
Exactly.
fantastic. So, if families, particularly homeschool families, want to learn more about the Freedom Scholar and the support that you give for families, what's the best way to do that?
Well, I would love to offer up my Love of Learning Launchpad for your audience, and that
Love
is
that.
a like really short quiz on giving you a complete snapshot of where your family's love of learning is right now. So it's really just a moment in time of, how we doing? And it's
Yeah.
going to show you some things that your kids do and some things that you do or don't do, and it gives you an indication for where you should be headed, and then it also gives you some results about what's next for you too. So definitely check that out. And then also,
I'll link to
if
it in the show notes. We'll get it in the show
yes.
notes.
Yes, for sure. And then if you have questions, I love chatting with parents. I know Lisa loves this too, but I love chatting with parents. I love seeing where you're at and where you want to go. So if you're in the homeschooling realm or you're thinking about homeschooling, and no matter where you're at in the journey, for sure reach out to me. You can DM me, or there's an opportunity to get in touch with me through the quiz as well. But you
Okay.
can DM me on social, the Freedom Scholar on Instagram, Kami Wanous, the Freedom Scholar on Facebook as well. And I'm really easy to get hold of. So I
You
just would
are.
love, yeah, I
Does
would
the
love to chat.
quiz make sense for like could somebody who's a traditional schooler
Yep,
take the quiz and then if they're like, I don't need to hear about the homeschooling stuff, they can just opt out if they
100%.
okay. So the quiz is good for everybody, people.
Everybody.
So, okay,
It's
you
just love
see
of
why
learning.
I had to have Cami on. We're so aligned in this, like, let's get curious, let's begin with the end in mind. Let's be lifelong learning development, career development, all the things. Cami, thanks for making time.
Man, what a great conversation we had today. Thank you.
Thank you.